Guys, Kamina the coach here. I am here with more like an update video. So I'm Kamina the coach. This channel was originally dedicated to helping people get their stuff together to begin to work and live abroad. I lived and taught abroad for almost a decade in 8 different countries, several countries, multiple times. And so I use that expertise to help people get past some of the hurdles and fears to get it together to take that leap themselves. With the entrance of COVID in 2020, I was forced back into the United States. I rededicated this channel to addressing early childhood trauma, post-traumatic stress related to early childhood trauma, and mine in particular related to adoption trauma. So without further ado, after the long introduction, so one of the ways, so this is really an update video, and if you've been following my channel, you know that one of the ways that I was able to open up some pathways in my brain to cause some rewiring is using psilocybin found in magic mushrooms. And in the process, I learned how to cultivate. So I cultivate using Uncle Ben's tech, and if you're new to this arena and you attempt to join any groups, you will find that this technique is very, very poo-pooed. If you're curious about learning about this technique for cultivating magic mushrooms, just so you know, if you're in the United States or Canada, you can buy your spores directly offline. There are some states in the United States that SporeWorks won't deliver to, but there are other sources as well. So there is a channel called 90 Second Mycology on YouTube, and that guy is amazing. I also got into, I joined the San Francisco Psychedelic Society, even though I was living in Arizona. It's not decriminalized in Arizona yet. So I joined the San Francisco Mycological Society, Psychedelic Society. I also had a therapist who was psychedelic informed. So that was cool. It wasn't hugely helpful to me, to be quite honest, but it was nice to have the support. And it doesn't take much searching to see the research that supports this. So before we get into what it's done for me and where I'm at a year later, that's the reason I'm doing an update video, because it's a year later. So when they do brain scans of people who are under the influence of psilocybin, the brain is actually transformed back into a more childlike brain. It's not that there are more connections, it's that the connections are more widespread. So as you become an adult, your connections get more specialized. If you had all the connections, all the same connections that you had when you were born, you would constantly be in a state of overload. You have all the connections that you need when you're born to speak any possible language, to play any possible instrument, to play any possible sport. And then as you learn, the things that you learn, those pathways are strengthened. That's why it's so important that children are brought up in loving, nurturing environments, because when their brains are very plastic like this, it's very easy to enforce a pathway. And so for those of us who had early childhood trauma, the pathway of fear of death has been reinforced really early in life. So the reason for me why psilocybin mushrooms are so spectacular is because it opened up those pathways that I had at childhood and gave me an opportunity to address that and to rewire those pathways, essentially. Please do not think that this comes with just taking some mushrooms. There is a lot of work that goes with this. Also, if you are on MEOI inhibitors or any kind of antipsychotic medication, do not try this. Do not try this, right? I haven't been on medications. Gosh, I got out of the military in 2010. Psychiatrists and therapists tried to put me on all sorts of stuff then, but I was never really keen to take it. So I've been completely drug pharmaceutical free for, God, I don't know, well over a decade. So also if you're prone to being psychotic, if you have been diagnosed in this area, it's very dangerous. There are just a lot of ways that it can be dangerous for you. So just because I'm telling you that it worked for me, please understand that I've done a lot of work. I am not using any kind of pharmaceuticals, and I did a lot of research beforehand. So setting, I was set quite a bit before I used this medicine, which is what I consider psilocybin mushroom to be as a medicine. It may be someday that I feel safe enough to make a how-to video, since my face is on this channel, and I live in countries currently where it's not legal and in cities where it's not been decrim. I'm not gonna do that. Oh, and by the way, I don't know, yeah, I said it in my last video, so this is my third move in Mexico in 3 months. I'm in Chiapas right now. So, update time. Last year, this time, I was in a really bad space. So I am I am a transracial late discovery adoptee. So I am a Black woman that was adopted by white parents, and I didn't find out that I was adopted until I was 32. My adopted mother caused a lot of harm to me when I was young. I was molested by her only biological child, and she slept with my boyfriend when I was young, and demanded that I leave her house when I was 14, and called the police, and the police escorted me out of the home. So I had a lot of undesirable pathways in my brain. And so what I discovered about 3 years ago is somatic experiencing. So your emotions manifest in your body as well. So a really great book to check out is Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score. Look for that book, you'll find it. So Bessel with a B. Amazing book. And so there are a lot of people that talk about somatic experiencing, soma meaning the body, and kind of checking in with yourself for when you're feeling something, and checking where you feel it in your body. Something that I discovered 3 years ago when I was living in Myanmar. Traffic is really crazy in Myanmar. It's a really new society. When I was living there, they had just come out from under military control. They're sadly back under military control. But when I was living there, they were just starting to experience freedom. So people were just now getting the right to drive. And it was very obvious when you walk down the street, and so quite scary. And on more than one occasion, a bus would pass so close to me when I was walking on the street that it would make my hair blow. That I feel like it was going to take the skin off my cheek, and it would cause this fear, justifiably so, of death. So I discovered around that time where I'm experiencing that fear at, and it was right around here, and it was just this radiating, tingling feeling, and I hadn't ever really paid attention to it before, to be honest. But I know that it wasn't a new thing, but I hadn't been paying attention to it. So looking at somatic experiencing, I think, is important to understand where you are storing emotions in your body, but that's other videos. And there's plenty of stuff about that online. So why is that relevant? So what's interesting is that once I discovered where I was manifesting in my body this fear of death feeling, I kind of quickly discovered that I was feeling this feeling a lot. I was experiencing, and sorry, the school is literally, like, I could throw a stone and hit the school, so you can probably hear the school in the speaker. It's pretty loud. Yeah, so having this feeling of death, manifesting as this tingly feeling right here in this area, and it was happening when I was startled. It was happening a lot of times when I'm startled. Just somebody would walk up. It would happen if I would make a wrong turn. It would happen if I step off something wrong. It would happen if I was really disappointed. It was occurring a lot. So, what happens in your body when you are afraid that you're going to die? There is an intense rush of adrenaline and cortisol. And all of that stuff is really good because in our primitive state, we needed to be ready to run from, adjust this so we don't have fluctuating light. To be ready to run from lions, tigers, and bears, oh my. But now we still need it, but it's really not healthy to have intensely high levels and prolonged high levels of cortisol in your system. So when your body is in that heightened state, so you have a parasympathetic and I'm not a scientist, by the way, and I'm not a therapist either. I should have said that up front. So when your adrenaline system, when you're in fight or flight mode, your system that is doing the healing cannot work. It's one or the other. So when you're in this state of fight or flight, when you have adrenaline and cortisol rushing through your body cannot heal. So I began to get worried because I recognized that I was experiencing this so much that I must have heightened levels of adrenaline and cortisol in my body a lot. Since I was very young, I've had issues with my joints, my hands. I've had migraines since I was very young. I have a very rare a colonic ulcer that will never heal. This is really common of those of us who have experienced early childhood trauma, specifically adoption trauma. Because we live in this state of fight or flight so often, our body cannot return to that calm state so that we can repair ourselves. That was a mouthful. People go through years and years and years of talk therapy and don't see results. I have a couple of videos that talk about how my attempts at talk therapy did more harm than good. Really traumatic experience with talk therapists. Two in particular, very traumatic. The last one, people can cause damage without meaning to. I'm sure the first two didn't mean to. The last one was really well-intentioned, but she caused some damage as well. Probably some of that is my own trauma as well, but just like veganism isn't for everybody's body, my body rejected it, therapy is not for everybody. And I know that that's going to be contrary to popular belief, but it didn't work for me. I'm not saying that you shouldn't seek out a therapist. Everybody is not me, and my channel is not for everybody. I wasn't sent here to send a message to everybody. This message is for the light being that is similar to myself. And for some of you, this is really going to resonate. For some of you that have tried and tried and tried with therapists, it's not you. It is not your fault. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. It didn't work for me either. I knew that I needed help and I knew that I needed to do something. Reunion was hard for me, just so you know. And I think that for most people, it is not what you see on TV. It was hard, and I had a secondary rejection from my birth mother. I don't consciously feel anything about that, but I am sure that subconsciously my inner baby Kamina feels rejected again, or did. It was really hard finding out that my father had passed away before I could meet him. It was really hard meeting his family. I have not met them in person, but it was really hard, very overwhelming. He has a very big family. It was just hard. It was a lot. It was a lot, and I was not in a good place. Holiday, birthday. So Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving, boo. I do something I don't celebrate, but it's still very triggering for me because it's a family holiday, or it used to be. So Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, and then my birthday is January 16th. So it's historically been a very hard time for me. So 2021 was my reunion year. And then, started in January of 2021. And then the holiday season came, and it was a killer. It is the closest, trigger warning here, I'm going to talk about suicide. It is the closest that I have come to as an adult to suicide. And if I didn't believe that my soul would have to return to do this nonsense again, I probably would have killed myself. Genuinely, I was in a bad place. I had tried 3, 4 different therapists with no luck. Somatic experiencing to control when I was triggered. I was feeling a lot of tightness in my throat, feeling like I hadn't said what I needed to say. There was just a lot, really, and I was in a very dark space, and I didn't feel like I could get out. I began seeking, initially by seeking DMT. I do have an article on some adoptees site talking about this. On my channel, I've talked about this quite a bit. I started off seeking DMT and ayahuasca. I was drawn to Clubhouse, and on Clubhouse I found psilocybin, magic mushrooms, much easier to access. And I started researching psilocybin and the amazing effects that psilocybin has had for people. So I was able, when I moved to Arizona from South Carolina, much easier, much more free thinking, more similar to California type of society. So I was able to access some magic mushrooms. My very first experience was 2 grams, and I experienced complete soul disillusionment, and that feeling started to go away. What I mean by ego disillusionment. So what I mean by that is the part of your brain that experiences fear is really less active. I believe it's the amygdala while you're in a psychedelic state, while you're on a psilocybin psychedelic state. And the part of you that says I kind of disappears. And people who use mushrooms for healing are always seeking this. All I was doing was just letting myself know that I was safe. I wanted to work up to 5 grams. So I started with 2, and I was going to do 3, and then I was going to do 5. But I experienced that soul disillusionment off of only 2 grams. So here became the problem, though. When trying other people's mushrooms, or even of the same batch, you don't really know what you're getting when you're buying other people's mushrooms. So that was when I started seeking to cultivate my own mushrooms, especially when I was able to, after my 5-gram journey, and I'm not recommending that. They call it a hero's journey. I'm not recommending that to anybody. And I do want to say, let me back up a little bit. I achieved a type of peace that I do not think that I would have been able to achieve on my own. Now, there are types of meditation that can achieve the same type of mental state that you get from a psychedelic. However, I was in such a chaotic state inside of myself. I do not think that I could have achieved that level of focus and serenity without the mushroom. And maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my perspective. Everybody felt the difference in me right away after the very first dose. It's very hard to be in mushroom communities. There's a lot of ego involved, which is really strange because mushroom is supposed to be about soul disillusionment. So I really I have trouble being in mushroom communities, but I really have a deep desire to help people on this journey if they want to go on this journey. So if that is something that you're looking for, please feel free to contact me, KaminaTheCoach@gmail.com. I would love to help you on this journey. But I kept trying these groups. The groups, just like therapy, didn't really work for me because there's a lot of ego involved. Why the groups? Because I started looking at cultivating for myself, because getting from somebody else, you just don't know what you're getting. And lo and behold, I found that cultivating became a type of healing in of itself. Really, really spectacularly healing. And let me say that I don't just study pubescence, which is the magic mushroom. Mushrooms in general are spectacular, magnificent mycelium. Mushrooms can clean water, they can digest plastic. Mushrooms could play a huge part in helping us to heal the earth. So I am a huge proponent for mushrooms. Medicinal, not magic, medicinal, like lion's mane and cordyceps. Medicinal, edible, and of course, psychedelic. I'm a huge proponent for mushrooms. They are spectacular. So I started trying to figure out how to cultivate, and I joined a cultivation group and was introduced to, and I hate the name, Uncle Ben's Tech, because the reason why it's named this is because they use what is now called ready rice. And with the realization that a whole lot of our products were very racistly named, they did away with Uncle Ben's and now they call it ready rice. But you can really use any form of already cooked rice in a package. Spectacular, because there is a lot of sanitation that you need in the early stages so that you're not growing other stuff. Mushroom is a fungus, so you can easily grow mold and other fungus as well. So in the early stages, there's a lot of sanitation required. Once you have mycelium, mycelium is very strong and resilient, but you have to go from spore to mycelium, and your mycelium has to be strong. So that's why the ready rice bags are amazing, because they are sterile inside of that bag. Obviously, you're not going to eat something that's dirty. You just inject your spores directly into that bag, and then once it's cultivated, it's much less likely to get infected or contaminated. That's the word. So yeah, so I brought some here with me, and they are incredibly resilient. I just put them to coir the other day, which is called birthing. So I brought some bags with me that were fully cultivated, put them on some coir, and 3 days later I already have mycelium. And I can't tell you how excited it makes me. Cultivation has even been a healing process for me. It's just like being a parent, really. It is. It's like being a parent. So if you're curious about cultivation, feel free to reach out as well. Just wildly rewarding. But I challenge you to go back and look at a video from November of 2021 to November of 2022 and the difference in my aura. I am like a new person, and I attribute that to my hard work, and a large part of that to the psilocybin mushroom, and an equally large part to my cultivation journey. And I guess I add a part of that as well to getting out of the United States, back out of the United States. It was good for me to go back. I needed to go back to face myself. I probably wouldn't have gone on that reunion journey if I wouldn't have gone back to the United States. So wherever you go, there you are, the Buddhist mantra. For sure I needed to go back for this journey, but getting out of the United States has been really healing as well. And that's it. I would like to say again, if you are on medications, specifically MEOIs, taking magic mushrooms can be very dangerous. If you are looking for a quick fix, there's not one. It takes a lot of work, continued work. Even after I took the mushrooms, there's still a lot of ups and downs, and I still have to do a lot of work. Not necessarily saying it's hard work, but it does take dedication, which is not something that is very common in the microwave society. We have a tendency to just sit down and quit versus to use the information at our fingertips here on YouTube to make our lives better and to make the world better. So definitely that's my goal on this channel. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down in the comments or send me an email. Feel free to join any of my groups, Americans of Color Teaching Abroad, Overseas Jobs for Black Americans, Progressive INFJ Women, Brothers and Sisters in Mexico. I do have quite a few groups online. But if you just need some help moving through the healing process, I'm happy to help. If you want to learn how to work and live abroad and want to work with me, feel free to reach out. Until next time, my name is Kamina the Coach, sending you love, light, peace, and joy. I'll see you next time.